Hello, listeners. Welcome to the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon podcast. Today, I'm excited to have a guest with us, Raymond Chou. And I was just telling him I was following him for a number of years on many social media, including Instagram. And he is actually soon to be climbing Mount KK. And I find that he is not just the typical entrepreneur or the typical businessman. Like, I find that he has done a lot of very exciting things. And if you go to his Instagram, you can see him skydiving, climbing Mount KK, and I before this interview, I was just listening to his interview on another podcast. He actually has started many businesses, I think more than 11, so has a lot of things to share. He was also part of the EO Malaysian chapter as well, and he has coached and helped hundreds of businesses. And very excited to have him here today. If you remember, for the listeners, a few weeks ago, we talked to Jonathan Quek, part of the Owner Circle, and Raymond Chou here is also a co-founder of the Owner Circle. Raymond, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Bob. Thanks for having me.
All right, Ray. So the first question for all my guests, because it's called the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon podcast, is what is your favorite Kung Fu movie?
Are we going to talk about that the whole entire podcast? Because that's pretty much okay. So Kung Fu movies is I love Kung Fu movies since I was a little kid, right? So I think I remember I think everybody remember Jet Li Kung Fu movies. Once upon a time in China, right? That was one of my favorite Kung Fu movies. Then we have the Jackie Chan stuff, but favorite Kung Fu movie, I think I would have to say Kung Fu Hustle. And the reason is because it's just so extreme. It's so out of this world, so unbelievable, but it's just so fun to watch. So that has to be my top pick.
Thank you, Ray. I remember clearly when at Kung Fu Hustle, right? It transcends race. I've seen it played in mamaks or played in restaurants, and people who don't understand Chinese or Cantonese can just sit down and they just can watch the scenes. It doesn't matter. You don't need to know, and they know. And yeah, so the icon inside there was, of course, the landlady, which has become a icon and symbol across across our cultures now.
It was dubbed in English as well, right? The Kung Fu Hustle.
Yes, dubbed in English, and many people would have said that as well. So thank you so much. So I know, well, while preparing for this podcast, that you are your initial plans for your career was in music. Can you tell us a bit more? What do you play, and what a bit about your music interest?
I guess it was because of I wasn't exactly the most studious person in school. While a lot of my friends were all when they left high school, they wanted to become doctors, engineers, or rather their parents want them to be, and all that. And I was trying to figure out what can almost a failure in school do. And I realized that I love two things. One was arts and the other was music. Then I was asking myself, right, arts, you only become famous when you die. So I said, okay, cannot. I want to be famous when I'm alive. So I said, okay, the only option was music. So that's why I started pursuing music. So I play by ear. So I play the keyboards. I play a little bit of the drums. I play a bit of the bass guitar. But primarily I sing most of the time. So I love singing. And when I was growing up, my music career is basically more of music engineering. So I used to do sound recording, be behind the console, do live concerts and stuff like that. So that was my earlier career.
What genre do you sing?
More pop because it's easier. A little bit of slow rock, right? Don't ask me to sing anything which requires a lot of screaming. So that's not my genre.
So if, let's say, today I pull you out on stage and then you had to sing one song, what would that song be?
Coldplay. Coldplay is my favorite band.
Oh,
so anything Coldplay. Yes.
Which one? Which song? I want to go down to which song.
Which song?
Yes.
Oh gosh, now you put me on the spot. I can't remember
the. Okay. I will share my experience with Coldplay. So I'm actually going to see Coldplay in Bangkok.
November.
In Bangkok in February, because I'm not one of the lucky ones who got the Malaysia tickets. So Bangkok it is. And I like Coldplay, especially their alternative rock phase. The first album, the Parachutes. The Parachutes album. And my favorite song is a song that not many people know, called Shiver.
Oh wow! Wow!
Yeah. So that is how much I like Coldplay. So yeah, maybe yours should be around the same, or which album would it be?
I love everything Coldplay lah.
Oh,
It just inspires me a lot because they are very raw, they're very authentic. If you ever been to their concerts, they're not the glitz and glamour type of band when they perform. It's just pure raw, nice sounding music, and that's what I love about Coldplay lah.
awesome, awesome. I'm a avid music as a aspirational musician also. So I go to
Awesome.
jam sessions on weekends when
Oh,
in Singapore.
nice.
So jam sessions are mostly jazz, and there's a place in Chinatown called Jiao Tim, and on weekends there's a lot of jam sessions and a lot of performances going
I
on.
heard
So
about that. I
yeah,
should invite you to we have a band which are all entrepreneurs. We all were all like failed musicians in the past, or rather, we all discovered that music is something we couldn't make money, so we all went to go and do business, and then still maintain music as a passion. So yeah, come, we jam, and then we perform for charity. So we go to gigs, and then we just play, and then we just try and raise funds.
all right, sounds good, sounds good, and maybe you can jam some Coldplay also. All right. Right. So yeah, Ray. So like while studying, I believe that you have 11 businesses at the same time. Am I right, or what is the number today?
Well, I founded or co-founded 15 different businesses throughout my last 27 years of entrepreneurship. Today, there's remaining 11. That's right. You're absolutely right. Sometimes I lose count. I'm just trying to find my head out. Yeah.
That is amazing, right? And I think the reason why you're in Singapore as well, you being a Malaysian, you have businesses in Singapore, am I right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, businesses in Singapore and Indonesia. I used to have businesses in Thailand, in Sri Lanka, and Australia as well.
Wow, that is that is quite impressive
Thank
as
you.
well. And yeah, so like for having co-founded 15, how do you pick and choose which industry or what business to be in?
To be honest, I don't have a formula. I would basically pick businesses based on whether or not, number one, I think in my earlier days in picking businesses, I wanted to know whether I was good at it. So whether I could pick up the skill and be good at it. And then just basically if I knew I had the strength and I could get some customers, then I knew, okay, if there is some customers that want to buy a product or buy my service, then I guess it's a viable business to do. So, but then in my later years, I guess I learned how to analyze numbers and looking at whether or not it makes sense for a business to work, whether it's manufacturing a product, whether it's a particular service. And I realized one very, very important part of business is that not every good idea is a good business, right? And some good ideas just simply doesn't make sense. Because I think one thing that I've always reminded myself about is the concept of time. Whatever that we do, we are always against time. And time is something that will never stop. We all know that, right? It's a concept that we're all familiar with. But if we don't look at time very, very carefully, and we don't choose the business carefully, then we will just waste time in a way. So nowadays, when I look at a business, I always go back to the numbers. Does it make sense? Is it profitable? How long do I need to spend to actually make it exponentially grow? So that's pretty much my formula.
Thank you, Ray. That is a good point because it's not just the cost of money, but the opportunity cost also. You
Absolutely.
spend time on the business. So, like for the 11 currently, which ones do you actively run, or do you run all of them?
So I don't run any one of them actively except for Owner Circle now. I just stepped down as the CEO of Infront Consulting, my technology company which builds AI applications for companies all around Asia. And I guess it's just my current passion in life. My current phase and passion in life is really about helping businesses to grow. I think going through my own personal journey, and I know that many businesses out there, the business owners, we all never had formal education, right? So nobody went through like, okay, I will study a business degree or study a master's and then start a business, right? I think 99% of business owners out there had a good idea and then started business, and then just bang walls along the way, right? So I think it's a mission to see how to help others. I think I'm in a position to be able to do that. It's also a calling from from God about four years ago that I was to do this. So that's what my focus is at the moment. The rest, I'm still a shareholder, but I don't get involved in the operations or the business anymore.
Right. Thank you, Ray. So when I interviewed Jonathan, he is the one who connected us together. He actually really loved this question. So maybe I throw this question to you as well. So one of the questions that he said nobody asked him before is, I asked him what is his biggest challenge, which is how do you differentiate being an entrepreneur and an investor. So he said he has to sort of put on different hats when it comes to this. So how is it for you, Ray?
I think it's exactly the same thing. The one thing that I always educated myself in the past was this, especially in a small business, there are always three different roles. One is a role of a shareholder, the other is a role of a director, and the third is a role of operations, right? Many of us, we started business, we are all playing all three roles. But if you look at all the large businesses, those roles are very, very clear. A shareholder's role is about putting in money in the business, is about connecting people, right? And they don't get involved in the day-to-day, right? What they receive back in return is dividends. The role of a director is to take accountability of the business plans, and so on, and to appoint the right management team to run the business. And then the role of the CEO and anyone that is running the team with the CEO is operations and day-to-day, right? So I think having a clear understanding of each role helped me in terms of understanding how do I approach every business and when do I exit the operations of a business. If I could not dedicate my time on a day-to-day basis, means that I have to leave operations. I have to leave the role of a CEO. Because if again, going back to the concept of time I said earlier, right? If we remove ourselves from a particular time slot and dedicate it to somewhere else, then that time slot cannot be used for this particular business. So then if you don't have presence in the business, then how do you run the business, right? So I think for me, an investor or a shareholder, a director, and operations must be clearly defined, even if you're a small company. Then, especially in partnership discussions, it's a lot easier. Then we ask ourselves, do we approach this as a shareholder? Do we approach this as operations? Or do we approach this as a director? I think it has helped me solve a lot of partnership potential arguments when we clearly define this.
Yep, thank you. That is a very, very structured way of explaining this as well. So for every business, I get that you know that, okay, this one I'm a director, this one I'm a shareholder, this one I'm a operation. So you play that hat whenever you operate that, you engage that business, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so I think the next question. So earlier we talked about that music is something you love and talk about Coldplay. So maybe can we talk about this myth? Because you work with hundreds of entrepreneurs, they always say, never turn your passion into a business. So maybe you can give us some thoughts on that.
Oh wow. I actually wrote an article on this. And I said that while some people says that passion is necessary for the business, I truly believe that passion doesn't guarantee success. One of the reasons I left the music industry is because I was very passionate in it, but I knew I was not going to be successful. So I don't believe that passion creates success. I feel that passion will help you to start the business, will help you to get up every day. But what creates success is purpose and vision. If there is a specific reason for the business and it solves a problem, and you have a vision of where we want to bring this business to be, and we have a very clear understanding that in the next 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, where it's going to take us to, then that will help us to be successful. Because like what you said earlier, Bob, it's very, very easily when you start slogging 16-hour days, 18-hour days, and then you ask yourself, oh my God, am I still passionate about this? And then you start doubting yourself and say, oh my God, because passion then becomes work. It's no longer fun, right? So once the fun element is out, then it's tough. So no, passion gets you through the door, but passion doesn't create success.
But would it be, just now you mentioned the three hats just now that you play. Would you ever consider, let's say, being a director or a shareholder that is not operational of like a business that is your passion? For example, someone can invest in a restaurant, they love cooking, things like that.
As an investor,
Yeah.
yes, I would, if the numbers make sense.
Okay.
So then it goes back down to, right? So I also own a restaurant and a chain of restaurants, but I also look at the numbers, right? And whether or not the business model makes sense. Right? At the end of the day, I'm a true believer that for any business, the product is not our product. Our business model is the product. If you see all successful businesses today, you look at the mega businesses like McDonald's, like Starbucks, right? Does McDonald's have the best burger? Doesn't. Does Starbucks have the best coffee? Doesn't. Right? So all the top businesses in the world does not have the best product. So it is never about the product. So when I look at a business, I try to leave emotions and passion out of the way and to see whether the business model works. Is it the right target market? And whether or not it is, can it maintain and sustain a certain type of profitability through the years, if that makes sense.
Yes. Thank you, Ray. So, talking to Raymond Chow, we reference Ray Kroc also from McDonald's.
Yeah, he's a most successful Ray.
Yeah, and I know you studied in the UK, and now you're in Singapore for business, and I believe a majority of your businesses are in Malaysia, and you mentioned some of them used to be in in Sri Lanka, places like that. So is it a decision for you to, because a lot of people, a lot of Malaysians like you go study overseas, and then you sort of, okay, I immigrate or I expand somewhere else. So is it a decision for you to be in Malaysia?
Actually, it wasn't. I think because when I was in Malaysia, I was living there under the student visa. And student visas, we had 5 years. Although, to be honest, I wasn't studying most of the time. But we had the student visa for 5 years. So the end of the 5 years, it was the year 1998. And it was somewhere along the global financial crisis. We started in 1997. And obviously, it was very difficult to find work. And being in the music industry was even worse. So when I decided that, okay, I had no choice, I had to come back to Malaysia, finding a job in music in Malaysia was probably the toughest thing to do in a global financial crisis. So imagine a really niche industry during the global financial crisis, and you don't really have any credibility to your name. So I remember that I applied a job in a music studio. It was called Synchro Sound, and it was supposedly that day the top studio in Southeast Asia. And he looked at my credentials. He looked at, oh, you know what? Because I used to be a sound engineer for some Malaysian celebrities before I went to London, like Leonard Tan and so on. And he says, okay, I want you in the company. I want you to be a sound engineer. Okay. So I said, okay, how much is the package? And he said, oh, we can offer you 800 ringgit. I was like, what? Is that a day or a week? No, 800 a month. Everyone starts here. So that was kind of opened my eyes in the industry of music. So it wasn't something that I felt that I couldn't survive. So it was something that I had to make a decision on. And that was when I went into tech.
And is it a choice that most of your businesses are in Malaysia because you live in Malaysia?
Naturally, right? Naturally. It was easier, especially at the start, because it was close by. But then I started to explore out of Malaysia because I realized that Malaysia is a fairly good-sized country, but it wasn't big. The potentials of purchasing isn't as big as countries, even just across the border, like Indonesia. I mean, Indonesia has close to 300 million population, 10 times the size of Malaysia. So the potential of buying power is greater. But Malaysia is a great country to do business. So to be honest, I've been to so many countries and doing business. Malaysia is still a really good country to do business. And I love it. I still do a lot of the businesses here.
All right, thank you, Raymond. So hashtag Malaysia Madani, okay? So plug for that as well. So like I imagine you said you had 15 and now it's 11. So maybe the question would be, when do you know? I know some of your businesses successfully exited, right? But when do you know when to close the books on a
As,
business?
as in stop the business?
Yeah.
Wow, that's actually, to be honest, that's a very difficult decision to make, because I think one school of thought that people always say is to persevere, grit, do all you can. The diamond is just one dig away, and all these things are, oh, no, I have to jump, I have to go all the way, right? Uh, I guess at the end of the day is, from scientifically, I feel that for me is number one, if you're really bleeding until you cannot tahan, or you can't survive anymore. I think that's one clear sign. We have to start begging, borrowing money and things like that. I mean, to be honest, I almost went bankrupt twice, right? Because of the sheer thinking that, oh, I have to persevere through this. I have to have grit. I have to do it. But one thing that I didn't realize is something that sometimes it just doesn't work. And I think one of the lessons that when I was near bankrupt one time in my business, one of my lessons was this, that I should have called it quits earlier, so that I still had money to start something else. When I was near bankruptcy, the process of recovery was a longer process. And I think always we think that this is my one and only opportunity in the world to be successful. And I think, to be honest, that's bullshit. The whole notion of opportunity knocks only once, to me, is bullshit. There's many opportunities out there, but you just have to obviously take it. But if you don't take this one for any reason, just work hard to build the next opportunity. There's many opportunities out there. So if there's a business doesn't work, have the guts. Okay, I'm going to try not to swear in your podcast, okay, Bob?
It's so fine. It's fine.
Yeah, have the balls, have the guts to call it quits. Stop. A lot of us don't want to do it because of ego. We think that, oh, stopping a business, that means we are considered a failure. Being a bankrupt, being down, having nothing, that is almost a failure. But it's never a failure to stop a business and says, you know what, that's it for today. I can fight another day.
Oh, thank you. That is so gold indeed. So it's not always perseverance is the answer, and sometimes businesses pivot as well, right? So it's not always about the grade. Sometimes you look at the numbers, etc. And this is something, maybe a myth that I can ask you about. So one of my favorite podcasts is called the My First Million podcast. It is the podcast in the US that talks about growth and starting businesses to exit, etc. So one of the things that is discussed is you focus on one thing and you grow that thing into that unicorn or into that business. So you have 11 at the moment. So do you think like maybe those who are starting out should focus on a few, or how do you balance that?
I think it's a great question. I get asked a lot as well. So I did not start 11 businesses at the same time, right? So it was 15 different businesses across 27 years. I subscribe to the notion of focus on one thing at a time. As you build it, if we can build it to a stage where it can run on its own, then you can build something else. But the minute we start doing two to three things, and I'm guilty, right? I'm guilty of starting actually three businesses at the same time. And out of the three businesses, two of them was my statistics in the failure, right? My statistics in those ones that is being closed down. Because I realized that, again, it goes back down to time, right? We only have 8 to 10 hours a day to work. We all think that we have 16 to 18 hours a day to work. All entrepreneurs will just say, okay, we just work hard now, later can rest. Rest or not, right? We still have this amount of hours. So if I take 4 hours in one business, another 4 hours in another business, another 2 hours in another business, means that the amount of dilution and the amount of focus is only that much. So while yes, it's maybe at some time there's an idea and we don't want to miss the opportunity, there's FOMO involved, we want to do it. But I realized that it's understanding how much of time do we have to carve out and what is the consequences of the dilution of time away from this focus. So focus is very key. Not only focus on the business, but focusing also on one thing that we do at a time. So yeah, focus is key, man.
Right. Thank you, Raymond. So that is so important indeed. And once it's running by itself, like you said, then you can start other things as well. So while listening to this podcast, I listened to your another interview, and it's one of the best podcasts I listened to, I must say.
Wow.
It is the Dying to Meet You podcast, and yeah, and in that podcast, you were very emotional. You shared about your failures, like you were $1 million in debt with a bank, and then $1 million in debt with your suppliers, as I remember. So that was very good sharing there, and I really love your story of how you came out about it. How you came out of it. You negotiated your way out of your debt. But so like maybe I'll ask you. So just now you said some of your businesses do fail. So what are some of the learnings you had from your failures?
The number one for me, which is really, really important, is to not let ideas and dreams cloud the reality of numbers. I think I mentioned it a few times during this podcast. Going back down to really, really understanding what is our costs, what is our expenses, what is the profitability margins. Is this enough to take us through? Is it enough to survive? So the reason why I was in that situation, which you heard in that podcast, was that, which goes to my second point, is the word ego and arrogance, right? So at that time, my business was growing tremendously well. And the tech business, I was doing about 30% growth every single year for 5 years straight. So can you imagine a 150% growth in just 5 years, right? So the numbers were amazing. And then ego and arrogance came in, right? I felt that I was invincible. Nothing can stop me. I just have to invest more, I'll earn more. Invest more and I'll earn more. And because of the arrogance, I didn't see that there were many competitors that started to come by, started to copy what we did. And I was I was so arrogant to even tell my team, right? And I remember my salesperson came up to me and says, "Hey, boss, we have a few more competitors that has emerged, and doing the same thing that we are doing. What do we do?" And I actually remember I told my salesperson this. I says, "Why are you guys so worried? We started this business 5 to 6 years ago. They only just started today, right? We are 6 years ahead. Why are you so worried, right? Our customers will know that we are always number one. And obviously, our customers I always ask you, what does our customers care about? Whether we started first or what? Obviously, our customers cared more about price lah. And I started to lose business. But I invested so much in manpower and resources because I think that I was going to get more business. So invest first lah. I was going to get more business ma. And as I was losing businesses, I still persevered through. I still said, no worries, we're gonna get the next big deal next. We're gonna get the next big deal next. I didn't look at the business model. I didn't look at our profitability. I didn't look at the numbers. I didn't look at pivoting. You brought up that word earlier, Bob. I didn't look at anything. Right? So I guess these lessons are look at the numbers, remove ego, because ego is the number one killer of business. Right? And I guess number 3 is coming out of that is to always find a way to be grateful for the little things that we have. We lose sight of the little gratefulness. And ever since then, I always ask myself this question every morning, right? What am I grateful for this morning? I never stopped asking that to myself for the last 13 years.
Thank you, Ray. That is very gold advice indeed. I think the big word there is ego.
Ego.
Which is what brought you there won't take you won't take you to the next level as well.
Yeah.
But we need some ego to be an entrepreneur. And yeah, and I think a lot I am sort of a new entrepreneur as well, and a lot of people ask me like, is it good to be entrepreneur? I say, if you are working, just keep working first, unless you really want to. So like, what is your advice? Like, who do you think should be an entrepreneur, and who should, keep working as a salary person?
I think if you're a little bit crazy, that's formula number one. Then you can be. Entrepreneurs are a little bit crazy because I think many people that starts business thinking that entrepreneurs earns a lot of money. Entrepreneurs drive nice car. Entrepreneurs basically get to do anything that they want at any time. Anybody who wants to start business thinking that that's the lifestyle, I'm sorry to say, it's just it's bullshit lah, right? Entrepreneurs give up more time than somebody who's continuing to work, right? Entrepreneurs give up more money, right, and spend more money because they have to maintain a certain status or lifestyle, right? So if you want to be an entrepreneur, my advice is to really be wanting to solve a problem, really wanting to understand that there is something that I need to passionately solve it, or rather bring certain impact to the world, or even the people around me, or even my neighbors. And that if the numbers make sense, then be an entrepreneur, because you're going to be spending a lot of time in the business. There will be no time. There will be very little money, at least at the start. And yeah, so there's going to be a lot of investment in that. So be an entrepreneur if you really are passionate about solving a problem. And when you get through that, then yeah, you can probably earn the money that you want to, have the time that you want to, but not without slogging like a mad cow at the start lah.
That is a very, very honest advice. So, and yeah, so thank you so much. And yeah, now with Owner Circle, I imagine you help a lot of businesses who generate who are businesses with a certain amount of revenue. So what gives you the biggest satisfaction?
I guess the biggest satisfaction for me is really seeing other people grow lah. So I have this little, so when I started growing businesses, right, I had this crazy dream of one day owning 100 companies. And then after 27 years, I only own 11, right? Then I realized that, oh my God, I think this dream is a bit stupid lah. Right? There's no way lah, unless I live to 1,000 lah. And then going through all the ups and downs in businesses, I think I'm at a stage where I don't think it's possible and I don't want to. But that dream of owning 100 businesses is still there, because I feel that this is something that I wanted to achieve. That was my achievement matrix. So I guess one thing that really gives me a lot more fulfillment today from a heart perspective is seeing other entrepreneurs grow, seeing entrepreneurs have more time for themselves or for their family. I've seen entrepreneurs who put in like crazy hours, still creating the product, still doing the packaging, still driving to the customer's house and sending the package, right? Because they just don't have the structure or cannot have the money to grow. So seeing them be free, having more time for themselves and claiming back those time that gives me a lot of fulfillment. And in a way, in a silly way, I also am owning 100 companies, but it's just not myself, right? It's through the hard work of others. So that is my biggest satisfaction.
Wow, that is so goal indeed. And is there a goal for you? Like, for example, you said 100. So right now, are you looking to impact a certain number of businesses?
Yeah. So I actually lost count. I speak to probably thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs across Southeast Asia mainly, and sometimes around APAC and also Europe and so on. But I'm really not. I've asked myself this, and I don't think it's about the numbers anymore. It's really about whether or not the entrepreneurs that follows, of entrepreneurs that I have managed to guide, can they really get to a certain point of their success, but at the same time have a well-balanced family and personal life. Because I truly feel that if you reach your success, right, but then you're in a hospital bed, you've lost your family, right, to achieve that success, then what's the point, right? What's the point? So I think for me, it's seeing that impact come even from a personal level. That is what being a true entrepreneur and a true leader should be.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, that is the definition of success. All right. Thank you so much, Ray, for being with us. And in this very short time, you've given so much impact. So maybe I'll end with this last question. So reading your bio, you said you started your first business at the age of 20. If you could go back in time and give your 20-year-old self advice, what would it be?
Don't start business. No. I guess I would say learn to say no. Like what I shared earlier, I think there are many opportunities in life. Not all of them are great. And if we understand time as a factor in that, every time we say yes or no to something, it uses time. And if we learn to say no to certain things that are not important, and I'm going to be completely raw here, even saying no to certain people to hang out with, right? We claim back that time, we can use that time for something greater, even for our own personal use. Don't talk about building businesses, right? So I would tell myself to learn to say no, invest our time well, hang around with people that would invest in you as well, invest in growth. And at the end, I guess when we start saying no to others, we start saying yes to ourselves.
Thank you so much, Ray. That is so go indeed. Thank you for saying yes to this podcast. So yes, thank you so much, Ray. And yeah, please follow Ray. I believe he's active on the Instagram and
Yes.
follow the owners and many of his businesses as well. And thank you again, Ray, for being on the pod.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for having me.